I want to thank you all for coming tonight. This is a big night for the student entrepreneurs. My name is Lydia McClure. I am the head of the Austin Technology Incubator's development portfolio, and I am running the SEAL program this summer. So I want to take a few minutes just to tell you about the rules. There's no competition here tonight, but I do want to say there is a lot of street noise. So if you would refrain from exiting during a presentation, that would be very helpful. We'll give you about a minute or two in between presentations if you need to leave or get another drink. So please just remember that the exits are closed during presentations. The restrooms are in the back, so you can go there. That's free space. Okay. So I'm really excited to be here tonight. There are 7 teams that are going to be talking, and they're going to be telling you about their stories. So it's not a pitch for money, which is very common in Austin, but it's a pitch to tell you about them. And I hope you enjoy hearing their stories because all of these students are from the University of Texas. I imagine some of you are as well. Some of them are undergraduates. Some of them just graduated. Some of them are graduate students. Some of them are postdoctoral students. So we have lots of students at UT. I can't remember how many, but I know it's a lot. And I'm going to ask Isaac Barkus, who is the head of the Austin Technology Incubator, ATI, to come up and say a few words before we get started. So here's Isaac.
Thanks very much. Thank you all for being here. I'm Isaac Barkus. I run the Austin Technology Incubator at the IC² Institute of the University of Texas at Austin, which hopefully is the last time I'll say all of that in a row this evening. How many of you all are either former SEAL teams from ATI? I think we're SEAL participants from ATI. Fair number of folks. Okay. Actually, nobody raised their hand, but I thought that since you were looking at me, I could say that. And if you keep looking, look, I'm going to wave this, so keep looking up here. So what I wanted to do is give a little bit of context about the Student Entrepreneur Acceleration and Launch program. To do that, I wanted to contextualize it with the Austin Technology Incubator in general, and then entrepreneurship support at the University of Texas. And I realize I'm getting close to the edge. So I went a couple of weeks ago, Rocky Horror Picture Show. Anyone? Okay, yeah. So I went to the Rocky Horror Picture Show live show at the Salvage Vanguard Theater. Anyone? The lead, who was wearing pumps and like 6-inch heels, ended up falling off the stage. And I'm not wearing pumps or heels. I will next time, but not this time around. But I'm going to step back a little bit. So the Austin Technology Incubator, we're the startup incubator of the University of Texas at Austin. We were founded 27, I guess now, years ago. The granddaddy of incubators in Austin, and actually, as far as we can tell, the longest established venture incubator in the country. We have worked continually with technology companies at UT and in the community generally. And I'd like to call out a couple of our founding partners. Mark Ott, who's the city manager, isn't here right now, but his office has been tremendously supportive of the incubator, and we could not do what we do, especially with this program, without the city's help. So thank you to the city. I got to the incubator about 8 years ago, and I want to call out one other person who's here, Johnny Butler. Johnny's getting a drink. Hey, Johnny. Johnny was the director of the IC² Institute. There he is. And he's actually the guy who suggested that we push this program forward. So I'm really glad that John's here. Thank you, John. Just about the Austin Technology Incubator. So a little bit about who we are and what we do. We help early stage technology companies compete in the capital markets. We're pretty focused on that. So we don't do a lot of entrepreneurship training. We don't have pretty offices. In fact, we're about not to have offices at all. Is that right? Which is actually fine, because for the kind of value that we deliver, it really is about taking teams that are good teams with good technology and getting them across the line of funding. Over the past few years, we've had about an 89% success rate in getting our companies funded. Our companies have raised about $700 million in investor capital in the past 7 years, which is when we've been keeping the stats. Investors have taken about $700 million off the table from ATI companies, so realized gains of about $700 million. And there's about $1 billion or $1.5 billion of unrealized value in ATI alumni companies right now. A lot of those companies started off as student enterprises at ATI. Some of the most successful did. And we launched the Student Entrepreneur Acceleration and Launch Program, what, 8 years ago now, 8 years ago. Because the University of Texas is really rich in academic programs that support entrepreneurship. Texas Venture Labs in the business school, and Bob Metcalf's here. Hi, Bob. Bob runs a program called Longhorn Startup over in the School of Engineering, the Idea to Product competition and program in the School of Engineering. There are tens of courses in academic entrepreneurship. The Office of Technology Commercialization, the I-Corps program, where the University of Texas collaborates with the National Science Foundation to support startups. All of these programs are active at UT. What there wasn't at UT 8 years ago was a way of catching the student teams that were coming out of those programs and helping them think through whether they wanted to take their startup forward or not. And this is something that's pretty critical to us. I said that we're all about helping companies succeed in the capital markets, and we are. That's our focus, and we're good at it. The most important commodity that our entrepreneurs have, though, isn't money, it's time. It's time. If you lose $1, you can make another one. If you lose a minute, God's not going to give you another minute. What we wanted to do with these students, who are really jacked up and excited, and they've been through these fantastic academic programs at UT, is we wanted to put them through a pretty rigorous program over the summer, not focused on getting them ready to raise money, although about 1/3 of the companies that have gone through SEAL have raised money, totaling about $30 million so far. Another 1/3, by the way, are still operating organically, and 1/3 of them have decided to close up shop. Of that 1/3, about half have reformed companies. So the people that you see on the stage, as well as the companies, are worth paying attention to. You have these students who are coming through the academic programs, and we wanted to make sure that they really thought about whether they should devote their time to this endeavor, their time. And so we decided to do almost an anti-pitch summer, right? A lot of accelerators are you come in, you get ready to pitch, you go out, there's a laser light show, and boom, you've launched the company. What we wanted to do is work with the students and mentors in Austin and outside of Austin to identify not what could possibly make this company successful, but what is likely to kill this company off. And we wanted the students to work intensively on those go, no-go, keep, kill, A-B decisions, with the goal of, at the end of the summer, getting up here on this stage and saying, you know, here's what we're doing, here's the benefit. There are 3 things or 2 things or 1 thing that we really needed to resolve to know if we're going to go forward or not. And the answer is yes, we're going to go, or no, we're not going to go. That's what the SEAL program is about. And in fact, the acronym, people think, oh God, you know, it's so military and everything. So yeah, SEAL teams, we get it, right? That wasn't actually our motivation. We weren't thinking Bart Bone. Bart, where are you? Way in the back with a beer. Good to see you in your natural state, Bart. Bart was the guy with Shannon Lundquist. Where's Shannon? Who named the SEAL program, Student Entrepreneur Acceleration and Launch. And the sort of guiding principle or the guiding inspiration behind that wasn't Navy SEALs, it was baby SEALs on ice floes being clubbed. By the way, the student SEAL team members, we didn't tell you that when you signed up, but it's true. So that's getting pretty close to the end of my summation. We have slides which I'll run through to make sure I didn't skip anything. But something else I want to say, UT is hugely supportive of student entrepreneurship. I mentioned some of the programs that we have. The Vice President for Research's office has been very supportive of us supporting student entrepreneurship. It turns out that last year, there were about 176 I love that, about 176. There were 176 of these proto companies floating around the University of Texas, right? So that's not ideas or technologies. Those are teams, a couple of people, a couple of students, faculty member and a student who think that they might have something and have put some effort into figuring out whether this could be a company or not. Of those 176, most people will sort of do a bit of work and decide, nah, too hard, not right for us, time to license the technology, whatever else. About 30 of those really have legs. 30 to 50 have some legs to them. And of those 30 to 50, we picked about 8 this year, 8 teams to come through the SEAL program. So what you're seeing on stage is a pretty good representation of the not just good teams and good students, but the kinds of teams that the University of Texas is currently producing. 2 things lastly. One of the things that we try to do in the SEAL program over the summer, pardon me, is to integrate these students with the support structure in Austin. And we are really lucky, and especially over the past 5 years, we've gotten luckier. There are some fantastic private sector entrepreneurship support organizations here in Austin. Capital Factory, Techstars, Dreamit, a number of SEAL teams have actually gone on to work with those organizations. WeWork, the co-working space, and other co-working spaces usually give student teams access to resources at a discounted rate. And the community as a whole really gets behind the student teams, including investing in them. And the last person I'm going to call out by name is Kyle Cox, who's floating around somewhere. He's way back there. He's in the back, so I can just talk about him freely. Yeah. So Kyle, he was a stripper, and Kyle used to. Oh, there he's here. Oh shoot. Oh, that's awkward. Hi, Kyle. Kyle used to be on our team at ATI. I ended up leaving ATI almost exactly a year ago because he wanted to set up an investment fund that was focused on basically investing in ATI SEAL teams, and has been very successful doing so. So thank you very much, Kyle. We appreciate it. Am I allowed to say any stats, or should I keep it quiet now? Kyle's made 5 investments in the past year and has already sold 2 companies. And I think of those 5, 3 or 4 of them are former SEAL or have a connection to the SEAL program. So with that, I will thank our sponsors. We have a sponsor slide. Sponsors: Pecan Street, City of Austin, Founder.org, of course the IC Squared Institute, which is our parent organization that Johnny Butler ran, the Economic Development Administration, State Energy Conservation Office, the Department of Energy, Austin Energy, and just a lot of people in the community, law firms like Justin Bose is here from DLA Piper, who contribute for free to the student teams to try to help make them more successful. We thank you all very much. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to seeing the final presentations. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lydia. Thank you.
Thanks, Isaac. Before we get started, I do want to mention that this is all being live streamed, and it's on Google Hangouts on Air, which means that right after this, it'll be live streaming for the end of time. So feel free, if you like a team, watch it again. Tweet your mom. Yeah. Okay. I do want to introduce the first brave soul to come up on stage, Cheryl. Cheryl and her team met at the Masters of Science and Technology Commercialization Program, and she will tell you more about that, but I'm very excited to have her here. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you. Well, welcome, and thank you all for coming out to support us tonight as we wrap up our Summer of SEAL program. It really means a lot to have you come share in our stories. Recently, I read an article in the Atlantic magazine that I found really fascinating. So the Atlantic assembled a panel of experts, scientists, engineers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and technology historians. And they asked them to assess the technology and innovations they felt had the most impact on daily life around the world. Vaccines came in number 8 on that list, number 8. I thought that was pretty amazing. Vaccines outranked the automobile, the PC, the internet, even nuclear fission. Incredible. And I also thought it was very well deserved. Every year, vaccinations save more than 9 million lives worldwide. And every year to support that, the pharmaceutical industry and the organizations that support them have to spend over $1 billion maintaining the cold chain, the name given to the logistics needed to safely transport vaccines to these people all over the world. Yet even with all that time and money, an estimated 16 million people will die this year simply because vaccines can't reach them. This is a problem we believe we can help solve. We're developing AeroVax, a vaccine delivery platform that enables access to these low resource areas. I'm Cheryl Tolkoff, we're Flipped Health, and we aim to flip the vaccine market upside down. In order to do that, we believe we've assembled an awesome team, cross-functional, diverse group of us. We call ourselves Flippers. Several of us are here in the audience tonight. Mike, Liz, Brandon's not here. But we all met at UT in the Masters of Science and Technology Commercialization Program, and we joined together because we had a common interest in life science technology. And that's how we met our two researchers, Dr. Rong Quy and Dr. Bill Williams, who are professors in the UT School of Pharmacy, where they invented and patented the technology that we're using for our process today. Also through the MSTC program, we met our mentor and advisor, Bob Lavolsi, who's studied and researched the vaccine industry market, both in the US and overseas, for almost a decade. The problem that we're trying to solve and the opportunity we think we have is related to the fact that 98% of all vaccines must be stored at temperatures between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius or 35 to 45 Fahrenheit from the time they're manufactured until the time they're administered. And so what this means in different countries around the world, depending on where that delivery is, a range of 10 to 80% of those must be thrown away or wasted because they don't have the infrastructure to store them and handle them properly. All that expensive packaging, expedited freight, shipping and transportation that made up that $1 billion I mentioned earlier. And it even happens right here in the United States. Flight delays, packages left outside in Texas in the summer or in Michigan in the winter. Oops. There we go. So what's the market kind of size and opportunity? Vaccines are a huge and growing market with exploding population growth around the world. Last year, $24 billion in revenue was achieved through vaccines, and the area in red, that 14 billion number, is the amount that we can use our process on today. Shown in the smaller bullets are the HPV vaccine, the human papillomavirus, and the hepatitis B. Those are ones that we've successfully converted and dried using our process, and they represent potential opportunities for us in the $1 billion mark in terms of revenue. So how does our process work, or what are we doing? Basically, we have a high-tech freeze-drying process, somewhat similar to Starbucks Via or powdered milk, if you're familiar with those. We're taking liquid vaccines and drying them into a stable, uniform powder using a patented thin film freeze-drying process. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see a little bit about how the process works. The liquid vaccine is dripped onto a rotating drum. This drum is piped through with liquid nitrogen. And when the liquid hits that rotating drum, it freezes into a stable, uniform film. And as it comes off that drum in the lower right, you can see it's kind of the wafer powder looking version of that. From there, we further dry it using a lyophilization process into the fine powder you see in the vial in the center. And then it can be safely transported without refrigeration anywhere in the world and reconstituted simply using sterile water and injected as needed. And one of the two prototypes we use for this evaluation is shown in the upper right of the slide. So what are we offering, or what are the potential advantages to the customers who might be interested in using this? First is the ability to reduce the need for the cold chain to begin with. Even in the developing world, there's times when capacity in cold storage runs out. Think flu season in the fall, when millions of people are trying to get a flu shot and all of them have to be stored in a very narrow area of time. Why have to gear up for that? With our process, you don't. For those developing and emerging markets, That ability to reduce the wastage is significant. Imagine having to tell all your donors that the money that you donated for those vaccines was wasted and thrown away simply because we couldn't refrigerate them or store them properly. We've also shown that thermal stability at both freezing and elevated temperatures from 0 to 40 for 6 months and longer, far outside the minimum time the market needs. And finally, we enabled the access to those low resource areas, those high growth emerging markets that today simply lack access to the cold chain electricity and storage. Those huge areas around the world with the population growth like China, India, and sub-Saharan Africa. So what do we hope to accomplish in SEAL this summer? Our biggest challenge was taking a platform technology, which we felt could potentially be all things to all people, and really trying to decide who the right customer, segment, market, vaccine was to take into that space. So over the course of the summer, we did over 100 new market interviews with people both in the US and overseas, and everything from manufacturing, development, non-governmental organizations, the military, the veterinary market, anyone with any involvement in vaccines we attempted to speak to. And they really helped us narrow down both the care about, who could pay, and who would be interested in buying it, which helped us going into the next phase of our research. So with that, where are we today? Well, we're not ready to launch, not quite ready for prime time yet, but what the SEAL program has allowed us to do is come up with a concrete plan of next steps for how we're going to do that next round of research and the next round of R&D in the lab that we need to create the product that the customers out there told us they wanted and be willing to pay for. And we also identified some new opportunities, such as the chance to co-develop with people like the Sabin Institute for tropical diseases. So with that, in order to really be able to flip this market upside down, we need your help. We're still looking for some resources, and we know you're out there in the audience tonight, people with background in dealing with non-governmental organizations, with navigating the FDA regulatory path, and with understanding how to do business with governments and channels in these low resource countries. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you after tonight's presentations.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me with you here. I'm from Austin Robotics, working on upper body exoskeleton for robotic rehabilitation. I'm Bong-Soo Kim, PhD candidate in mechanical engineering. Before joining PhD program, I had been working at public enterprise Capco for around 6 years. During that time, I found one of my friends got diagnosed with Lou Gehrig disease, and he was trying to find some advanced technologies for better rehabilitation. And we came across a Japanese exoskeleton called HAL, but it was too costly and was not meant for physical therapy. From that point, with my original interest in robotics, I started to think that robotic rehabilitation is going to be an appealing area to directly help people. After joining the UT, I met Dr. Deshpande working on prosthetic hand rehabilitation robots, and I have been developing an upper body exoskeleton from the scratch during the past 4 years. Now we have a nice prototype, and we are trying to move forward out of laboratory with the help of ATI. In US alone, 9 million people take physical therapy every year. 800,000 people suffer a stroke each year, and we are also expecting aged society. Conventional therapy plays an important role in recovery from impairments. However, there's some limitation reported by a number of studies. For example, conventional therapy more focus on movement result, meaning it barely cares about quality of movement or normality of movement, which are critical for long-term recovery. And they also provide limited dosage, partially due to a lack of human resources and physical laboring from therapists. To overcome those limitations, researchers have been working on robotic rehabilitation technology, and many positive evidence have been reported. However, current upper body rehabilitation robots lack anatomical mobility, and they lack of range of motion, and they lack of physical interaction naturally. Focusing on those problems, I have been designed the exoskeleton that delivers anatomical shoulder mobility and wide range of motion for most of exercise. And the robot also can deliver gentle and smooth natural interaction and bimanual trainings. With those advanced features, the robot also creates advanced environment for rehabilitation, including automated therapy and precise measurement for patient clinical condition. And a user can also program various trainings with full or partial assistance or resistance. At the end of it, all these is contribute to maximizing rehabilitation efficacy. Someone says therapists are a competitor. However, I see them as an important partner. The robot needs to be run by therapists with proper clinical knowledge. There are a couple of actual competitors out there. They provide great robots. However, in terms of critical several factors like anatomical mobility or range of motion, our design is, I would say, superior. One drawback is that our robot is potentially more expensive than the others because of sophisticated and bimanual structure. But it is essential for more effective rehabilitation, and we will work for competitive price too in the development process. The total US market of physical therapy is around $30 billion in 2014, and rehabilitation robot market takes only a small portion of it. However, market analysis expect that there's a huge growth in this market, and for example, 2020, $1.8 billion is going to be expected. To get into market, there's a number of hurdles that we need to overcome, such as how to appear benefits to health provider at the expenses of for buying a robot, and what amount of additional cost patients would pay, and how reimbursement will act in this process. Of course, before going to market, we need to go through FDA approval, and the market itself is nearly untapped. And of course, there's a number of engineering challenges to be solved. This is 5 to 10 years of long-term journey, and with a number of problems to be solved. And we currently have patent about robust skeletal structure, but we need to develop a number of patentable technology, including the next generation robust structure, control algorithm for various exercises, and customized actuator, electronics, user interface program, etc. Of course, funding is a critical factor in this long journey, and we might need patient money for this. In the meantime, a third party offered the licensing for the patent, and OTC and the company are discussing about launching a new entity with my participation. The final decision will be made by OTC, of course, but here at this moment, I would like to make a go decision. Of course, there will be some of more difficulties, including fundraising, having a right partner, recruiting good engineers, and holding on long journey. But I believe this route is drive me the most pursuing my own vision on the technology development and business directions. I'm dreaming of someday when I can help people and my friend to have a better quality of life, this technology, and to make it happen, I would like to take it as my life mission. And I would welcome any connections from crowd with experience bringing any medical device to market, and I'm seeking a potential funding too. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pauline Van. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Inti Health, and you might call it Guardian Sensor about 10 minutes ago. We have invented a better solution to monitor the heart rate for runners. I came up with this idea when I was pursuing my master's degree in technology commercialization at the University of Texas. And I was joined by two innovators, Dr. Nanshu Lu and Dr. Nansa, who's standing, where's Dr. Nansa? Right there. Okay. And both of whom are the faculty at the University of Texas. And very recently, we have finished the negotiation with the exclusive license with the University of Texas for core patent. And that's why we brought Keith on board, who has a lot of manufacturing experience with Foxconn as we are finalizing our prototype. The global market for wearable health and fitness monitoring devices is experiencing an explosive growth right now. It is projected that it is going to grow at 43% year after year to reach over $18 billion in 2019. And there are so many products in the market, but the number one wanted features by the customers is the heart rate monitoring, which is demanded by 95% of potential buyers. And indeed, heart rate is the most important indicators for an efficient workout. And you don't want to not work out enough, or you don't want to work out too much, which can in fact also be dangerous. American Heart Association recommends it that for people who work out to keep their heart rate in the target heart rate zone, which is 50 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. So I think many of you already knew this, and that's why you bought a Fitbit or a smartwatch so you can keep track of your heart rate when you're doing your workout. But something you probably don't know is that this optical sensor-based heart rate monitoring devices is very inaccurate. It's especially true when you're doing active workout. The error rate can be up to 50%. The alternative solution is the chest straps, which can monitor the electric signals directly from your heart. However, these devices can be hard to put on and even more difficult to be kept on when you are moving around. In addition, these devices are made of rigid and hard plastic and electronic materials. Therefore, frequently, it can chafe your skin and cause allergic reactions. Our solution to the problem is a simple, soft, Band-Aid-like chest patch. In contrast to the rigid and hard chest straps, our sensor is much more comfortable and much more reliable. And the technology behind our solution is the epidermal sensors, which was invented by us co-founders at the University of Texas. This invention allowed us to design and fabricate otherwise rigid electronic sensors to be onto a soft, thin film. Our sensor patch is ultra thin, ultra soft, and ultra light, and it can conform and deform to the finest wrinkles and any movement of your skin. This patch is also multifunctional. In addition to heart rate, it can also be used to monitor electrocardiogram, skin hydration, skin temperature, respiratory rate, and many more, all at the same time. So over the course of the past 2 months, we have achieved the first wireless prototype. As you can see, the tester is wearing a sensor patch on his chest, which might be difficult to see, not only because the resolution of the picture is really bad, but also because the sensor patch is super thin and conforms to the tester's chest intimately. The patch is connected to a Bluetooth box via a short cable, and the tested heart rate and the electrocardiogram is being streamed lively to the tablet computer. For the next few months, we'll continue to work out the engineering details. We will need to miniaturize the Bluetooth box and also remove the cable that is currently needed to connect the box to the patch. Our designed product is going to be a simple a Band-Aid-like chest patch that you can put on and off your skin as all you want. Of course, this patch needs to be paired up with the indicator so we can actually read out the heart rate. And this can be your smartphone or smartwatch. And since there are so many products out there in the market already, we don't intend to make our own smartwatch or smartphones. What we are going to do next is to identify and establish collaboration with the chest strap makers as well as smartwatch manufacturers. In this way, we can continue to focus on our research and development on next generation sensor patch, and we can rely on our partners' channels for distribution. So just to summarize what we have achieved over here at the SEAL program. So if you recall, not only we had different name, we also had a different go-to-market strategy before the program. The market we were intent to enter was patient vital sign monitoring market. And over the past a couple of months, what we have learned is that this is going to be a slow route to go after. And also, there are significant risks associated with getting FDA clearance being too expensive or costing or taking too long. On the technology side, we have fabricated the first wireless prototype, and we have also identified the path forward to the final prototype. Meanwhile, we have also established a partnership with a manufacturer in China who has excellent track records. They are equally excited about our technology, and we are working together to build the manufacturing capacity. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we have very recently finished the negotiation with the exclusive patent right with the University of Texas. And it is expected that the deal will be closed by the end of this month. So what we are going to do next, and also this is what I'm asking the audience to help us with, is to identify and help us to start a collaboration with the heart rate monitoring manufacturers. We have invented a more comfortable, more reliable, and cheaper solution than any other product, heart rate monitoring product in the market via IntiHealth. And just as our customer will do, the decision for us is not to go, but to run with this venture. So you might be curious to know that why is Keith standing here since he hasn't said a word? But don't worry, he's not gonna say anything. Okay. Instead, he's gonna strip himself.
I'll do it. Probably.
Keith's been having the chest patch on his chest right now, and I'm showing a live demo of Keith's heart rate and electrocardiogram on this tablet computer. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you're interested in our project, or you just want to play around with the patch or just touch Keith's chest, come to speak to us.
Thanks for the excitement, everybody. My name is Joe Murata. I'm here with ProteinSeq. Now, what genomics does for DNA, we do for proteins. Everything in your body, in every cell, is done by proteins. Any disease, any drug, everything. But here's the problem. We don't actually know most of the proteins that are in the body. We can't see most of them using current technology. With ProteinSeq's technology, we can. As I said, my name is Joe Murata. I came to this project after years of working in the biotech industry in iterative and late-stage devices. I was very excited when I first heard about this project for two reasons. First of all, the technology is early stage. That's always super exciting for engineers. But more importantly, I believe that ProteinSeq has the ability to give rise to new industries. And I'll explain why in the next few slides. Jagannath Swaminathan is the co-inventor of the technology. and in May has completed his PhD here at UT, with his dissertation research being the foundation of ProteinSeq. Anna Chen has recently joined us from Harvard, where she completed her PhD with extensive experience in both early stage biotech startups and venture capital. On our scientific advisory board, we've got Edward Marcotte, the other co-inventor of the technology, and the youngest faculty member at UT to get tenure. He's brought in over $3 million in government grants for this project alone. We also have Andy Ellington, who's advised the White House as part of the Biosciences Safety Group on bioterrorism and biodefense, and Eric Anselin, who literally wrote the textbook on physical organic chemistry and has used proteins to detect and quantify the quality of wine. And before I move on, I'm sorry about this, I'd like to give a shout out to our advisor, Sherry Dunbar from Luminex, whose story has echoed our own very closely and has given us a lot of great advice over this summer. So let's say you go into your doctor complaining of exhaustion that's lasted for days. The doctor does a blood test. Behind me are all the proteins that are in human blood. With a blood test, the doctor can detect about 25% of these proteins. This is good enough for diagnosing things like anemia or hypothyroidism or a handful of other disorders that we know very well. What the doctor can't detect currently is the early stage cancer biomarkers lurking in those other 75% of proteins that we can't see. With ProteinSeq's technology, we can. Now picture a typical biologist who wants to study a drug interaction on cancer. Without knowing what she's looking for and using current technology, she can detect about 5% of those proteins. She's missing a wide range just on a fishing expedition. With ProteinSeq, she would be able to see 100% of those proteins. Now, the overall protein analysis market is projected to be almost $12 billion in 2019. This is split into research and diagnostics, and these are huge markets, and they're growing fast. Overall, the overall diagnostics market is projected to be about $72 billion in 2019. Now, with ProteinSeq's technology, we have the ability to open up new diagnostic markets and not limit ourselves to current proteomics. We're able to enter these markets because we have a less invasive test than current samples. For example, when you go into the doctor for a definitive diagnosis of Alzheimer's, a patient's spinal fluid needs to be analyzed. This means going in for a spinal tap. Does that sound exciting to anybody? Turns out these same proteins are present in very low levels in human blood, but current technology can't see them. So imagine if you could replace a spinal tap with a blood draw. Just about everybody would go for that, I think. Researchers also care about sensitivity, throughput, and coverage, which means basically they want to be able to see all of the proteins that are in their experiments with very high resolution on as many samples and as many experiments as possible. We can deliver this at a cost comparable to competing technologies. So here's how our technology works. We start with proteins and break them up into their components called peptides. We label certain amino acids on these peptides with fluorescent dyes and immobilize them on the surface so they can be viewed under a microscope. We then start stripping away amino acids one at a time, and here's where our technology really changes the game. You're able to watch fluorescent drops in those dyes, in those peptides, on each and every peptide in your sample as you start to strip away amino acids. This gives you not only sequence information, but also counts, quantities. We then use this sequence information and feed it through a proprietary database to figure out exactly what proteins were in your sample and exactly how many of them there were. So when we started the SEAL program, we're coming from an academic lab. So we needed to know who our relevant market segments were, what their applications were, and what sort of minimum viable product they would like to see. We spoke with people in biotech, in clinical diagnostics, in venture capital, next generation DNA sequencing, and a handful of others. So next generation DNA sequencing is very similar to our technology in some ways, but applied for DNA. Potential customers are very excited about this. People in biotech are wondering why it's not out there yet and when they can start using it. As far as applications in clinical diagnostics goes, we found that the market and that the market is moving further and further away from tissue-based diagnostics. Fewer biopsies, fewer paraffin embedding and other samples, and more towards the so-called liquid biopsy, which means a blood draw, urine, sweat, anything that could be in a human body. The next-gen DNA sequencing folks advised us to incubate as long in the academic lab as we possibly could. And so, from a SEAL perspective, we're deciding not to launch. We're going back to the lab for about a year or so to continue to develop our technology. In the meantime, we'll be talking with potential customers in the research market, as well as in the clinical diagnostics market. And we will launch into the research market first. This will help us generate some revenue stream, design a box that can be used in your average academic lab, and continue to partner with clinical applications, people like the Cleveland Clinic or MD Anderson, to ultimately launch into clinical diagnostics with our own kit, developed either through partnership or through internal development. So, I've been talking a lot about clinical diagnostics, and that is very important. That's going to be our ultimate target segment. We like to talk to the Quests and the Vermilions and the genomic healths of the world. But we also would like to meet people in the basic research market, and people who might use our technology for things that we haven't envisioned yet. I'm a systems engineer by training, and we really like to derive functional requirements and design specs from our customers' needs. That's where I really want to drive this product. And with that, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Lydia. As Lydia said, my name's Taylor Harvey, and I'm co-founder and CTO of Lucelo Technologies. Now, I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about smart packaging. Now, smart packaging is a high-growth, emerging market, and it has numerous companies that are working to develop new products that will enable better product tracking, environmental sensing, and also allow enhanced consumer interaction. Now, these products are incredible, and they really do take everyday devices that we use right now, things like transistors, displays, and they put them on everyday plastic. Now, this is one example. This is from a company in Norway called Thin Film, and you can see there's an e-ink display. There's some memory that they printed on there, there's some logic, and then there's a thermometer. But there's one thing that's really important for electronics that's missing here, and that is a source of power. Here's another example, and this device has an RFID sensor embedded in the plastic to allow the product to be tracked. But you can see there's definitely something on here that is not like everything else, and that's the battery. It's bulky, and it doesn't match any of the other materials at all. So smart packaging needs a flexible, lightweight power source that would go right along with the flexible, lightweight components. And at Lucelo, that is exactly what we are developing. We are able to print on lightweight, flexible plastic a photovoltaic that can provide power to these components and directly convert any source of light into electricity. We've raised $250,000 through federal small business grants and also sponsored research agreements. And we've developed a minimum viable product that will convert light into 4 volts in indoor lighting to power these components. And this allows us to power all the different components that will go into these smart packaging. Now, this starts at sensors, things like temperature sensors, humidity sensors, even some gas monitors. We will also power the memory, the logic, and the circuitry itself. And then it goes on to power the communication modules, things like RFIDs, and the displays that basically communicate this useful data to the rest of the world. Smart packaging will be a $10 billion market by 2020. Now, it's an emerging market, so we've done our homework to make sure that we understand it. We've done over 150 customer interviews to make sure that we understand the market and the opportunity. And it's a huge opportunity. There's an opportunity to print billions of these units. And we've established partnerships directly with many of the people that are doing this work. People like Pragmatic Printing, whose customers are big firms like Procter & Gamble and De La Rue, and National Label Company, who prints billions of labels each year for Johnson & Johnson and Energizer. So using a conservative estimate, by 2020, we'll be at an annual revenue over $25 million. Our team is currently myself and Aaron Chokla. Both Aaron and I received our PhDs in chemical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. And the core technology we use, I've worked on for over 5 years as part of my PhD. And Aaron was recently honored as one of Forbes magazine's 30 under 30 entrepreneurs in the energy category. We have a very strong advisory team. Bob Bridge is a serial entrepreneur. He's raised over $59 million since 2000 and led successful exits for several companies. Brian Korgel is a chemical engineering professor here at UT and is an expert in printed electronics. And Dave Jackrell is a technical consultant with over 20 years working with optoelectronic devices such as photovoltaics, and was last the vice president of research and development at a big solar startup called NanoSolar. So at the start of SIL, we were looking at quite a few different applications, and we're still really interested in some of these things like IoT devices, Internet of Things devices that you could monitor in remote places, and off-grid technologies where solar cells are needed off-grid. But through the SIL program, it's become clear that smart packaging is our best initial market. Now, we still need to understand exactly how these things are going to be used. So is it going to be things like this salad case where you'd have a sensor attached right to it, and then that would allow you to make sure it's fresh and safe and healthy? Or is there some other new application that's going to come out? And so right now, we're kicking off a project as part of Texas Venture Labs, where we're going to go and dig much deeper and make sure that we understand how smart packaging is going to be used completely. We also, through SIL, have defined our value chain. And this was very important to us because we are not a consumer-facing company. We're working with a lot of different people along this whole entire value chain in smart packaging. And we are basically putting a new component out there that will run these other components. And we've talked a lot to our direct customers who are basically printed electronic integrators. But we've also talked to people that are down farther the line, people like Hallmark, who are looking to replace their batteries and all their products with something that would be lighter weight and fit better with what they already offer. And through this, we have a much better understanding of how to drive value for our customers and to their customers also. Now this, we are a clear go. And at this point, we're looking to work with other companies that are working in smart packaging so that we can develop products that we can pass on down the market. And I would love any contacts anyone would be willing to share with us. With that, thank you, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone throughout the rest of the evening.
I know we're hard to spot, but if you guys are interested afterwards, we're in the back. We've got our own little booth, and our whole team's back there. So I'm going to start with a little story. When I was in high school, I was your average, above average whiz kid, in my own opinion. So I didn't really have trouble with school for the most part. But that was until calculus. So as soon as I started calculus, things just stopped making sense. So naturally, my parents wanted to salvage my GPA. They decided that they would go to a woman named Lori. She was infamous in my small town for having the best tutors, but also charging the most exorbitant prices. We were scared, I was stressed, and so we started to book sessions. Our first package was for a month at $80 an hour. So I walked into my first session at Starbucks, met with my tutor, and he taught me a lot. It was great. But as I started talking to him, I was wondering about his background, and he said he was a PhD student at UCLA. And I asked him, how much are you making right now? He said, $20. I said, so you're doing all the work, and you're making $20. And at that point, I started to realize that I wasn't paying for the work itself, I was paying for the network. But there was really no reason. She had a monopoly on that network. So an idea was born. So why would he work for $20 an hour? Well, student loan debt is at an all-time high. People are taking out loans, and people need jobs to help pay their way through school in the meantime. $20 an hour isn't that much when I'm paying $80 an hour, but it's much better than the alternative of $7 to $8 an hour. So, as we've seen in the past and as we've seen currently, college admittance rates are decreasing every year. This means it's more stressful for kids. This means the competition for the SAT and ACT tests are higher than ever. And parents, unsure how to meet these criteria, are paying for very expensive sessions. Your average Kaplan package, which is the minimum package, is $3,200. The average bank robbery yields about $3,500. So it wouldn't be wrong to call it highway robbery. But what we're seeing is the tutors really aren't seeing these returns. The tutors are still making barely above minimum wage, and they're okay with it. But at the same time, I think this is a big barrier to entry. I think a lot of people aren't tutoring specifically because they see that they aren't necessarily getting the returns they should, based on the fact that they've already invested so much in their education. So we think we can change that. Our two goals are to democratize education and to let people monetize their minds. So picture this, a hero's journey of the student who sits at the back of the class, isn't doing too well, but starts to get help from the kid at the front of the class, the kid who needs help paying his tuition, who's more than happy to help out. And so they start meeting, they start going over the material, and eventually the kid starts to get it, just like myself. At this point, that kid feels comfortable enough to start teaching others. So that's what we want to do. We want to enable people, we want to give people the opportunity to give back to their peers after they've learned on their own, and in turn get returns on their educational investment. So how does it work? Well, say I'm a struggling student in econ, for example. What I would do is open up the app. I would look for tutors in my area. I can search by courses, by subjects, even by tests like the SAT, ACT, LSAT, GMAT, etc. And once I find a tutor that I feel comfortable with, I can look through his profile. I can see if he has verified his university email address. I can see where he's going to school. I can see his job history to see if he's tutored professionally in the past. I can go through his past reviews from past students to see how they rate his ability. And as soon as I feel comfortable enough, I can schedule the session. And as soon as I do that, it'll pull up a list or a map view of popular locations to meet. Think the PCL, Starbucks, tap one of those, set a time that's convenient for me, and then schedule the session. As soon as the tutor accepts the request, it'll sync with your calendars. You'll get a reminder the day of, and then you simply meet. And at the end of the session, you pay, you review your tutor, and you decide if you want to meet again in the future. One thing I noticed, that not every session I went to with my tutor actually yielded the same results. I didn't always need him as much every time. Sometimes I would pay $80, and I would really only need him for one or two things. And so the idea of tips was born. With tips, you can just post a simple homework question, and a tutor from anywhere across the country can answer it. You only have to set the price with a minimum of $2, and as soon as you get the answer, the price is paid. And you can review the quality of the answer, and other students in your classes can actually pay to unlock this answer if they have the same question. So what we really want to do is to create a way for students to get returns on their educational investment, but to do so in a way that doesn't jeopardize the investment they've already made. So one problem with full-time jobs is that often you can jeopardize your grades in the process because you simply don't have enough time. With Tutor, students can work whenever they want, or tutors can work whenever they want. So if it's finals, they can take some time off to study, but in the off time, they can work 6 to 8 hours a day if they want to, pretty much as they can get done. And they can set the rate that they want to work for. We think they can put a value on their time. We shouldn't be the ones to do that. And as they grow their review base, as they verify things on their profile, they can up their price. So one thing we learned with our mentor is that education is not just an investment on a student's part, but it's also an institution's investment. So when you've got public schools investing in students, it's subsidized by the taxpayer, which means every student that ends up failing is a failed investment. We learned this through our mentor, Michael. He works at Civitas Learning, and they do data analytics for colleges. So what we learned was we have to go in and help identify these at-risk students, and then use the data we get from our sessions to see how we are helping them. We can actually sync this data with grade results and see if there are positive correlations between getting help and graduation rates. So how do we spread quickly and scale? What we've come up with is the Ambassador Program. So we're going to use our network to spread by incentivizing our friends and just motivated individuals to invite people using a promo code. If someone enters a promo code upon sign up, they'll get $2 in free tip credit, and they'll earn 5% commission on any tip or session that a student completes for 1 year afterwards. It'll have dedicated social sharing, so with Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. You can just tap a button, your promo code will go out. So what's next? Where do we want to take this? One thing we've looked into is actually integrating things like IBM's Watson supercomputer to get confidence intervals on tips. We've also looked into trying to get into the educational nonprofit sector by subsidizing some tutoring sessions for students who might not be able to afford it. We also want to do paired sessions, group sessions, basically what we'd like to do is make sure that we are always one step ahead of the industry. Right now we're integrated with Venmo, PayPal, Touch ID, and Apple Pay. So we have all the latest APIs installed, and we'd like to continue to do that in the future. We are planning on launching next week. We are currently under App Store review. And what we need from you right now is feedback. We'd like to know what we can do better. We'd like you to give us input, and we'd like to know how you think you might be able to partner or help us complete our mission. And if you have any questions or you'd like to see a demo of our product, we'll be right back on the left-hand side. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Omar, and I'm the founder of YouRefund. I'm also a first-year MBA student at McCombs, just incoming. Two awesome things happened to me the last 6 months of my life, and I want to tell you about them. The first one is that I got married to the girl of my dreams, Sophia. And the second one is that I had this great business idea that I'm about to tell you of. Now, before I got married, I was out shopping for a wedding ring, and I wanted to buy something really nice, but I also didn't want to break the bank. So I decided to make the drive up to El Paso, Texas, which is a 3-hour drive from my hometown in Mexico, and buy my rings from an uncle that manages a jewelry there. Now, here's a cool thing. I, as an international shopper, or back then before I lived here, I was able to claim my sales taxes back on the items that I bought that were bound to leave the country. And this applies not only to Mexican shoppers, but to all international shoppers here in Texas. The bad news, though, is that to get that refund back, the experience is worse than a trip to the DMV. Just to give you an idea, let's say I paid $10,000 on my wedding rings, which I didn't, but let's say I did. I didn't. I had to wait in line for an hour at a private broker because you don't do this claim of the refund at a government window. You go through a private broker. I had to wait in line for 1 hour. I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork. And finally, they gave me a letter that then I had to take all the way back to the retailer, to the jewelry, to obtain my sales tax back, which were supposedly $800. Now, for them to give me this letter, the brokers, they charged me $400, so 50%. That's the fee they're charging right now. It's crazy. Now, it's pretty bad. And I'm not the only one that thinks it's pretty bad, apparently, because $160 million go unclaimed every year because foreign visitors don't have the time to claim them, or they just don't want to go through the hassle, or they don't even know that they can claim them. So that's the amount. So what's the idea? That's why I created YouRefund. YouRefund is an app that will allow foreign shoppers to claim their sales tax back automatically through a software verification. And by cutting the overhead, we are able to charge 20%, 60% less expensive fees, which is 20%. So the way it works in a nutshell is you sign up, you tell us who you are, where you're from, what you bought, when are you taking it back. You take pictures of everything, and we'll front you the money. The company you refund will front you the money, and then we will take care of all that paperwork and collect the refund later with the retailer at the corporate level. So think of this as a short-term loan for the customer, but he's unaware, of course. You must be thinking, and I was thinking that as well, is this even legal? Will the state allow us to do this sort of verification through software? Because of course it sounds really cool, it's a very innovative thing. I think this is the future, but we needed to know if this was even legal. So that's the reason that I came to ATI and that I've been working on this since June to find out. And I'm very happy to tell you that we had an awesome experience and very good results. So short answer is yes, it's legal. We consulted 2 different law firms in town. One of them is called DLA Piper. They're a big international firm. They're here in the audience. Thank you very much, guys. The other one's called Shea Traffigan. They're a smaller, homegrown, Austin-based tax specialist firm. Both of them said, you know what, Omar, apparently, yes, your idea has some legs. You might be able to do this. And also both of them suggested, just to be completely sure, you need to go to the comptroller's office, it's the office that actually verifies this, and get their final approval. Now, in an extremely fortunate turn of events, and you won't even believe what I'm about to tell you, I found out 2 weeks ago that one of my newest best buddies in the MBA program actually works at the comptroller's office right now. He's completely on board with this. He loves it. He thinks it's a great idea. That's the best for the state because it would give it an edge over other states to get travel spending to come here instead of going somewhere else. So he's committed to shepherding this through the comptroller's office, and well, that's great news, right? Second question we wanted to ask is what's up with retailers? We wanted to know how to get them involved and what's it going to take for them to become part of our platform. We went out and spoke to a bunch of them. Basically, they came back saying the tax refund itself, it's not a big deal for them. It's really an admin procedure that they do right now. They have to do it with the current brokers they're working with. So we wouldn't be asking them to do much more than what they're doing right now. What was very cool, though, is that I spoke to Neiman Marcus's VP of Customer Analytics, and he said, Omar, we could do the refund if you don't ask from us much more than we're doing right now. But what we would like is to actually be able to communicate with those shoppers through your application, to engage with them, to know who they are, where they're from, how much they're spending, where else are they shopping, and of course, when are they coming back? Because they want to be able to target them and to offer them stuff. So now the claimable amount of taxes in a year is $220 million, but the total amount that these shoppers are spending is $6.6 billion every year. And that's a lot of money. So at the beginning, so this is how we found out the long-term vision for the company. At the beginning, we are gonna focus on making more efficient the tax refund process, but our final target is offering those foreign shoppers more experiences here when they come. Texas is a $6.6 billion market. The US is the largest, is the top nation by travel spending in the world with 15% market share, $280 billion. So we are really excited to be able to address this opportunity. Now, you don't need to take my word for this. Tax-free shopping and duty-free shopping, it's a big business. Worldwide, it's a big business here. And just to give you an idea, this is an opportunity that occurs at the intersection between retail shopping and travel. These are very high-end, affluent consumers who are the main users of these services. And they are dropping thousands of dollars on luxury items. The largest tax refund processor in the world is called Global Blue. Right now, well, 3 years ago, they were acquired by Silver Lake Partners in San Francisco. And those guys, they're very smart people. And they decided to pay $1.3 billion for that company. So that's the space they want to be in, and that's the space we want to be in as well. Our decision, of course, it's a go. And the reason that I'm here right now talking to you is because I'm looking to build an awesome the first thing that I want to do is build an awesome technical team. I'm not completely useless in the computer. I built our website, I designed the app, I wireframed it, I built a prototype, but I can't do this all by myself. And besides that, I'd much rather work with somebody. So I'm looking for a technical teammate that might help me get this off the ground. If you're an angel investor and you're in the audience, I'm sure you must have a lot of questions. That's great because I have answers. And I'm very, very eager to discuss how you might become involved in this eventually. Finally, but not last but not least, the people that I'm most excited to talk today is potential mentors. I'm pretty new to this community. I just moved here 3 months ago, and I'm really excited to be part of it. So if you're here in the audience and you think you might have a word of advice or wisdom to spare, I'd love to buy you coffee or a beer. And I want to thank all the ATI team that made this such a great experience for me and for you, Rifan. Thank you guys for your time. I'm sorry I didn't show my.
If you want to contact him, there you
Yeah,
go.
I'm gonna be here.
He gave his cell phone number. Jeez. Anyway, thank you all for coming tonight. I do want to mention that quite a few of us, I think almost every team, is going to walk around the corner and go to Ginger Man, where you can make friends and buy each other beers and have fun. So let's continue that conversation. I know Isaac wants to say a couple last words.
So I'll wrap up very quickly. First of all, fantastic job, teams. Another hand of applause, please. That was great. Second, I'd like to talk to the sponsor, Google. We are here in the Google space. We really appreciate having the space. We appreciate even more having access to their technical resources. All of this is being filmed. They're actually researchers, professors at UT who are going to be analyzing some of these presentations and using them to try to advance the state of knowledge on entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship pitches and the way students interact with entrepreneurship. Also, this is being, as you know, live streamed and video recorded. We've got a score or so of people who are watching live. Last year when we did this, we had another 500 or so who interacted with the presentations asynchronously. So once again, Google, thank you very much. And then lastly, biggest thanks go to the team of two that really pulled this together. Charlie Leonard, come on up. Charlie's a recent MBA graduate. You graduated, right? I think so. Okay, good. So we think he's a graduate. He's an entrepreneur in his own right, and he was the guy who pulled a lot of this stuff together. Really appreciate it, Charlie. Thank you very much. And then Dr. Lydia McClure. Lydia has done a fantastic job with us. She runs our entire development portfolio. In other words, everything that we do on campus. She has a PhD in molecular biology and biochemistry. Worked with Texas Venture Labs at the business school for about a year and then came over to our shop. She also is, I'm going to make this up, I think it's true, lead faculty member for the I-Corps program at the University of Texas. So Lydia, great job. Thank you very much. Please do join us at Ginger Man. Thank you all very much for coming. Thanks to the mentors, and we'll see you again next year. Thanks a lot. Bye.